My name is Deja and I am a realtor in Massachusetts, and I became a real estate agent in under a month and 100% remote, and here's how I did it. So I'm going to be reading from my little, I guess, brain dump book, and I'm going to break it down into 5 phases as simple as possible and as thoroughly as possible to how I was able to become a real estate agent in under a month and also 100% remote. The only time I had to go in was when I had to take my picture to get my license, and here's how I did it. So with phase 1, I started with the 40-hour course. So I was helping my cousin with content creation, and he's a real estate agent, and he kind of guided me through the process of becoming a real estate agent, and he was trying to convince me to become a real estate agent because he said I had a great personality for real estate. And he provided me with the course name. He sent it to me via email, and I was teetering with the idea, and then something happened, which I'll explain in a later video, that kind of motivated me to become a real estate agent. And I can link the class name in the description because I don't remember it off the top of my head. But to become a real estate agent, you have to take a 40-hour course. You can go in person or you can do it virtually. And I decided to do it virtually, and I completed the 40-hour course in 2 days. So this was 5/13/2024, and I completed the course, like I said, in 2 days, which was the weekend. And I'm used to being in school. I'm also a full-time graduate student in my last year as a mental health counselor, getting into the helping field. So I was taking summer classes and also studying to become a realtor at the same time. So my brain was already in school mode, so it wasn't really that hard for me. So that's phase 1, the 40-hour course. And from my recollection, I think the course cost me $225. So after I completed the course, we'll go into phase 2. And phase 2 is the application process. So to complete the application process, you have to be at least 18 years old. You have to complete the 40-hour course. You must obtain your real estate educational certification, and after you complete the class, they'll send that to you via email. At least for me, that's what they did. And you have to find 3 character references. I completed my application, so I took the classes 5/13. I completed my application and sent it in 5/16, and you also had to attach a picture. And the fee to take the test is $85. So in the application, you have to put your credit card information, or you can send them a check. I just put in my credit card information, and that was pretty standard. You also have to pass a Corey, I think it's Corey check, that's how they say it. I also did that online, and the notary person was online. He was so cute. He looked like the guy Devin from Raven, or That's So Raven. I have a picture of him. I don't know if I still have it, but he was very cute, and that was just like a sidebar. So that's phase 2. Phase 2 is the application process. I would say have 3 people in mind, get them all together, and then ask them to sign it in person, so that way you could just email your application right away and not have to wait to get these people to like sign and date and things like that, just to get it out of the way. So then there's phase 3, which is the studying process. My references that I use that I found were helpful was Just Call Maggie, who primarily focused on math, and that was the portion that I struggled with the most. Come to find out, I would always say, oh, I don't like math. Math is not my thing. I was an English major in undergrad, and I love to read. I read like 20 books per year. So math just wasn't my thing. So I was avoiding it, just thinking like, oh, that's only 10% of the test. I'll just pass everything else. But when I took the test the first time, most of the test was math. And I was completely caught off guard because I didn't focus primarily on studying math. So when I was kind of bombarded with math, I was just like, I don't know what to do here. So Just Call Me Maggie was a major resource. I also brought my notebook that I used when I was studying for the test, and let's see if I can find some of the math equations. Like I'm not sure if you could see that. Hopefully. I don't know. How do I do it the YouTube way? But there's math on the page. There's math also on this page too. So I was really buckling down to study the math portion. So just to jump ahead, after you study, you take the test. And I failed the national portion when I took the test because I did not study the math. And the test for Massachusetts is broken up into two parts. It's broken up into the state portion and it's broken up into the national portion. I passed the state portion immediately, but I failed the national portion the first time, and my score was 54 and the passing score was 56. So I missed it by 2 points, which was like a gut punch to the chest. Back to phase 3, which is studying. Another great resource was Prep Agent. Again, I was taking summer classes, so I had to go back and forth between my home and school a lot. And during that time, I was listening to podcasts. I was listening to the Prep Agent podcast on my way to school, which was really helpful in terms of learning vocabulary. A lot of people said that the real estate test is a vocabulary test, and I completely agree. Once you learn the words and what they mean, the test becomes a lot easier and more digestible. When I was trying to pick my brain for what things meant, it was a lot harder to understand what the question was asking me. But when I started studying keywords and vocabulary, that's when I was able to really crush the national portion. And then also another resource, again, these are all on YouTube. The last resource that I found helpful was Stu Jacobson. And another area that I was struggling in was the mortgage portion of the test, because I was studying a bunch of videos, but they were not talking about mortgages and what to expect or what the key words were in that area. So I was getting to the test and then I was seeing words that I had never seen before. So then I just decided to, whatever I didn't score high in, that's what I was going to study when I didn't pass the national portion the first time. So when I decided to, I guess, zero in on primarily the mortgage portion, that's when I passed the test, because I was listening to these videos and not once did they mention the different types of mortgages, like a balloon payment, amortization, a quick claim deed, things like that. The deeds, nobody mentioned them. So I was like, what are we even talking about here? Until I actually took the time to study it or find a video primarily that talks about that topic, and that was very helpful. I also had a format to how I studied for the test. So with my school, they provided you with exams. The exams were super comprehensive. That's how I was able to pass the state portion with flying colors, because it's a Massachusetts school, so the questions for the state portion were related to Massachusetts, and the national portion were very general but still related to the test. And I took the PSI test. Again, we're still on phase 3, which is studying. So how I formatted the table, so I created a table, and that's how I just kept track of my studying. So it was broken up into 4 columns. So column 1 was the date. Column 2 was the score. Column 3 was the test I took, and column 4 was the notes. And the dates were also color-coded by red, yellow, and green. So red means I scored low, yellow means I scored 70%, and then green means I scored like 80 or higher and I can move on to another test. So once I scored in the green, I didn't have to go back to that test, because that symbolized to me that I understood the information and I can move on. I feel like a lot of people study the same things over and over again and they don't leave room to study new information or the information that they know. Once you identify that you know the information, move on. So I sent in my application. Once I sent in my application, we're gonna go back to the application phase 2 because I missed a part. So once I sent in my application on 5/16 or 5/17, I received, so 5/16 I sent in my application. 5/17 I received an email from PSI notifying me that they've received my application. Then they also said it would take 4 to 6 weeks to process my application. Then on 6/11/2024, I was able to register for my test. So that was like a long period of waiting. And honestly, I took that time to study because you don't want to be like a sitting duck and waiting for the opportunity to present itself. You need to be studying immediately after you take the 40-hour course. Okay, I'm going to take a pause and take a sip. Okay, so that was phase 3 of studying. Phase 4 is the exam. And I kind of talked about it or alluded to it in other phases of this video. Again, there's 2 portions. So there's the state portion and the national portion. I did not go in person. Again, I was taking summer classes, graduate level summer classes. I did not have time to go in person ever. So I did my exam online. To register for the exam, the first time I tried to do it online, but my last name is hyphenated, so it was difficult for me to log in. So I called and scheduled my exam. Again, it costs $85 to take the test. To retake the test, it costs $54. And my test was 100% proctored. What I did was, on the days that I scheduled the test, I went into my school, booked a little study room, and took the test there because I knew it would be quiet. And with a proctored exam, they're very, very strict. You cannot have things on the wall. You can't have things on the desk. When you're getting ready to prepare for the exam or to start the exam, they make you take your laptop and move it around the room, move it under the desk, and also show your sleeves, things like that, just to show that you're not cheating. They also, for the test, you're allowed 1 piece of paper, 1 blank piece of paper, and 1 pencil. And at the end of the test, they make you rip up the paper in front of the camera, and you get your test results immediately after you take the test, which is great. So you don't have to worry about your test scores. Hold on. Excuse me. You don't have to worry about your test scores. So you get it immediately. That's how I knew I failed immediately. But they're also very strict, so I would keep that in mind. And you have to prove you are who you say you are. I think I had to hold up my passport, and they took a picture of it to prove that I was the person who should be taking the test. And also, prior to taking the test, I did the math to determine how many questions I could get wrong to fail, or how many questions I could get wrong to pass. So for Massachusetts, I wrote, I can get 24 questions incorrect for the national portion to score 70%. And then for the state portion, I could only get 12 questions incorrect for the state portion to score 70%. And it's also helpful. How I did the test taking strategy was questions that I was 100% certain I answered. Questions that I was not 100% certain, I bookmarked and went to the next question. Because, pro tip, sometimes other questions provided the answer for another question. So that was like a major key for me, because imagine one question was asking about a quit claim deed, and then another question answered it. So that was really helpful for me, and that helped me pass the national portion. And once you pass, they send you, if you fail, they send you a section or like a table of what you scored to determine what you need to work on, pretty much. And once you pass, they just send you like, congratulations, you passed the state portion, and then you move on. So once you pass and you received 2 passes, you can then move on to getting your license. This part, you just sign up. You do have to pay for your license. I my wallet is somewhere in here. I could show you my license. But you do have to pay for your license, and you do have to book an appointment. This was the only time that I had to go in person, and this is phase 5, which is licensure, or getting your license. The physical card license, and this paper. The paper is in my car. Once they gave it to me, I just threw it in my car and just moved on with my life. But that is literally your license. And also your real estate card. I have the real estate card on me. So once you arrive, so I'm in Massachusetts, so I had the option to go into Boston, or another location was in Fall River. I didn't want to drive into Boston because it was a weekday and I knew I would have to fight for parking. So I just figured I'd go to Fall River. And I guess I was so excited that I showed up to the location a day early. So I get there, people are taking the test. This is also where people take a test. So I'm super quiet, super just on edge, but also excited because I literally did all this work and I finally get my license. So I go to the place. It's this really young girl who's behind the desk. I'm talking to her. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm here to get my license. And she said, yeah, on Monday. And my response was, yeah, it is Monday. Like, what do you mean? Then she said, no, it's Sunday. So I was just like, oh, I drove all the way to Fall River for nothing. But I by the grace of God, she allowed me to still take my picture, get my license, pay for it, because she figured it really did not make sense to send me back home and then I had to drive all the way back to Fall River the next day. But I ended up getting my license, and now I am a real estate agent. This is just how to become a real estate agent, the beginning stages. Obviously, once you get your license, you have to find a brokerage and pay dues and all the other things. But this is really just a comprehensive overview of how I became a realtor in less than a month as a full-time graduate student, 100% remote. And there it is. I'll link my socials all around or in the comment section so we can stay connected. And again, I am Deja. I am a realtor in Massachusetts, and I help people buy, sell, and rent successfully.